Hey guys, today it's a beautiful day out. It's nice and fall and sunny, and this reflection off the sun's over there, but this car is like reflecting the sun right on the side of my face for some reason. Whatever. Today I thought I'd tell a crazy story from when I was 11, 12, something like that. But it was the day that I was like listed as a missing child for 4 hours or however long after they called the police, whatever. It was in the 5th grade when this happened. I went to Apollo Middle School. If you live in Antioch or you live in Nashville, you've probably heard of that. We had like the worst bus driver that did our route, and she was late almost every day. Like, I'm not kidding. It was like at least 3 times a week she was late. And all the other buses were on time, and all the other buses did the other schools, but for some reason our bus driver was always late. And we were always sitting in the lobby waiting, and everybody would always line up at the payphone. And that was when I used to use that 1-800-CALL-ATT like all the time, and we'd all call our parents and be like, can y'all come pick us up? The bus driver's late again, because we didn't want to sit and wait in the lobby, and we also didn't understand that our parents couldn't just always leave work at the drop of a hat. She was late again one day, and we were so sick of waiting. I remember calling my parents, but I don't remember if they answered. If they did answer, they probably obviously told me, no, I can't leave, you're just gonna have to wait for the bus, which was fine, but you know, I was hoping they would come get me, and then they weren't, and we were frustrated with waiting on the bus. So my friend Holly and I had just moved into this new neighborhood like the summer before this, and I had 2 best friends, Emma and Holly, and Emma was still in 4th grade, so she was at another school. And Holly was kind of like the bad girl in the neighborhood, like of my friends. She smoked in the 5th grade. She was always like ditching school. Like, she was like the little bad kid that did stuff. I love you, Holly, but you know you were like the bad kid. She was really sweet, and she was like a good person. She just did a lot of like bad shit. And I was like, you know what? Let's just walk home. I don't know why this came, like, I was a smart kid. I don't know why this idea popped into my head, but it was my idea. Everyone always thought it was Holly's idea because, again, she was like the bad kid, and I was a really good kid. Never got in trouble or anything. And I was like, let's walk home. I'm sick of this. Like, it'll be faster for us to walk home than wait for her. I like convinced them. I convinced Holly it was a good idea. My other friend, Brescian, who we were with, she lived in the neighborhood right by Apollo, so she walked home half the time anyway. So she like walked us through a little shortcut in the neighborhood, and I was like, look, when we get picked up from school or at home and we're taken to or from school, it's about 45 minutes, and that's with taking stops. And for some reason in my head I thought, okay, the bus probably goes like 30 miles an hour. We walk probably a quarter of that speed, which would be like 8 miles an hour or some shit, like something ridiculous. And I was like, in my head, I'm thinking this math is good. And I'm like, it's only going to take us like a few hours to get home, like 2 hours maybe max. I think I convinced her it was going to be an 1.5 to 2 hour walk to get home. Now, I've got a map here of exactly the route we took. And the route we took is 8.7 miles long. And it was the bus route. So it was not the most direct route to the house. It was the route that hit all the stops of the kids in that area. This is where the school was, and this is where my house was. So rather than take like a direct route through all this, we went all over the damn place. We went over to the lake. We went everywhere. We went the longest way like possible, apparently. We were walking home. And the thing is, our walk home was so uneventful that I barely remember any of it. I remember passing like 3 adults, and there was one time where there was a guy walking behind us, about half a mile behind us. So I like picked up a stick, and I was like, okay, if he comes at us, I got a weapon. Like, we thought we were way tougher than we were. And the guy wasn't like even concerned with us. He wasn't like looking at us or anything. Like, he lived in the neighborhood we were walking through, so we ended up walking in his house, and we were like, all right, cool. And then we passed like 2 more adults that were like crossing us, and they were all like out in public places, like on the main roads. So like we just kind of like nodded to them, and they just nodded back, thinking we were like kids in the neighborhood. We never had anything like crazy happen at all. We got from here to right around this area over here where the bakery is. We were at a Dairy Queen right down the road from the bakery. We stopped at the Dairy Queen to get some water. And Holly was like, well, let's see if they have a payphone and we can call our parents, because this is taking like way longer than you said it was going to. It was like 2 hours or something already. And I was like, no, because if I call and say that I'm here, I'm going to get in trouble. Like, I'm already 2 hours late, which is the longest that it takes for my bus to get home. They probably got home an hour before this. They probably got home like 1 hour into my walk home, maybe 45 minutes into my walk home, and I'm not home. And then they call the school to see if the bus is late, and they're like, no, the bus is already, like, the bus didn't come that late that day. We just didn't wait for it. We waited like 5 minutes before we made the decision to leave. We're already like an hour missing, and we aren't even halfway home. And I'm like, no, I can't, because I'll get in trouble if I'm out here. And Holly's like, no, I really think we should call somebody. And I'm like, no. We were on a busy road. We were walking down Murfreesboro Road in Antioch, which is very busy, very dangerous for 10-year-olds just to be walking down the side of. So before we left the school, we actually told one of my older brother's friends, his name was Matt. He lived in our neighborhood. My parents, went around to my friends, called my friends, went to their houses trying to find us. And Matt told them, Haley came up to me before when we were waiting for the bus, and she told me they were walking home. And I tried to talk her out of it, which he did. And she was adamant, and she left. And so they were freaking out, thinking, okay, Haley and Holly went walking home by themselves. Who knows what's going to happen? So my dad went out driving around looking for me. And he was looking down all the main roads and stuff. So he never passed me, never saw me, never found me. He was out for like 4 hours looking for me. They called the police. They told them what happened. The police are out searching too. They're all thinking like the worst has happened. And we're just like walking home in the most uneventful walk home ever. So 4.5 hours later, I think it was. For some reason, 6 hours is in my head, but I don't think I got home at like 8 o'clock. But it might have been 6 hours. It was somewhere between 4.5 and 6 hours before we were home. I remember a block away from my house running into Matt. And Matt ran at us and was like, oh my God. And he said, your parents have called the police. Nobody knows where you guys are. And everybody's been freaking out. And I'm like, oh shit. And I remember being like, okay, we got to go home. And so me and Holly split ways because we lived 2 blocks away from each other. So she went to her house and I went to mine. And I lived in a cul-de-sac. So as soon as I got to the top of the cul-de-sac, I remember seeing my grandparents and my little brother in the front yard. And I just remember waving to them hey, how's it? Everything was totally fine. And then I heard from across the street at Emma's house, I heard my mom scream my name and the door slam and her come running out. And I was like, fuck, I'm in big trouble. And she just came up crying and hugging me and saying they thought I was dead. They didn't know where I was, who drove me home, who was I with, what happened. And I kept saying, Holly and I just walked home. Holly and I just walked home. Nobody believed me. Everybody thought that I was scared to tell them what happened, I got picked up or something, and I didn't want to tell them because I'm still very pale and fair skinned, and I burn really easily, and I had just been out in the sun for 5 hours walking home. But I was going through neighborhoods where there was a lot of trees and a lot of shade. Their thinking was, there's no way you've been out in the sun for that long and you're not even red. You were with somebody picked you up, you can tell us, it's okay. I'm like, no, really, we just walked home. That's all we did. And it was so sad because I remember my little brother was crying, and I remember that he cleaned my room for me. Somebody asked him what are you doing? They were in the house and they were like, what are you doing? He was so little. I think he was 8 or 9, and he was like, maybe if I cleaned her room, then God will bring her home. Or he was so little and innocent. He was so scared that I was dead because my parents were freaking out. And I felt so bad for doing that to my little brother. Oh, it was awful. So sorry, Jordan, if you're watching, my bad. So everybody, I hugged my grandparents, and everybody was just glad I was home and that I was safe. And then I remember taking a shower because I was so dirty from just walking for so long. I was so sweaty. I was in my parents' bedroom, my parents' bathroom, which I never took baths and showers down there really, but I think my mom was just nervous to let me go anywhere else. So I took a shower down there and got out, wrapped myself in a towel, and I was brushing my hair when my dad walked in, and I heard him freaking out, and my mom was like, she's here, she's here, she's here. And I remember my dad walking in the bathroom, and that was the first time I cried because I felt so bad because my dad just walked up behind me, and I could see him in the mirror behind me as I was brushing my hair, and I just remember crying because I could tell he had been crying and he had been so scared, and I felt horrible. And I just started crying, and he hugged me, and he was like, don't ever do that again. You scared me so much. I thought you were gone forever. You know, just everything that you would say to your kid. And I remember like sobbing because I felt so bad. Again, he didn't believe that I hadn't been with somebody. And then the police showed up because my mom, I guess, had called the police station and said we found her. So the officer who had come to them originally, I guess, came back to check on me, and he came in, and I literally just put on like a nightgown. And I remember coming down the steps, they like called me down, and the police officer was standing at the door, and he asked me, he was like interrogating me, like not mean, but just, you know, where were you, what happened, like who were you with? And I was like, I wasn't with anybody, I was just with Holly, and we just walked home, like I promise. And he was like, nobody drove you anywhere? And I was like, no, nobody, I wasn't in the car with anybody. He's like, you're not going to be in trouble if you tell us, just tell us who you were with. And they kept, like, nobody would believe me. And I'm like, I swear to God, that's all we did. And I remember him looking at my parents right in front of me. There's no way she's been out in the sun this long and she's not burnt at all, because I had a little nightgown on with like spaghetti straps so you could see my shoulders, and that's what I was wearing home, was like a spaghetti strap tank top. So my shoulders would have been burnt, my face would have been burnt, my back would have been burnt. And he made me like turn around, and he checked like for burns, and he's like, she's not burnt at all. She had to have been with somebody. If you find anything out, let us know. Like basically, if she tells you that somebody kidnapped her or did something to her, call us so that we can figure out who it was. Eventually they believed it. It was just a stupid mistake. Of course they thought Holly was behind it, and I told them she was not, and they thought I was just defending her so I could still hang out with her. And because this was like the only bad thing I ever did as a kid, my parents didn't even know what to do, because they never like grounded us. So I just remember them telling me like I was grounded for 2 weeks. I wasn't allowed to go outside and play for 2 weeks. I wasn't allowed to watch TV or be on the computer. And like I'd just have to come home and do my homework and sit in my room, I guess. And then I wasn't allowed to be around Holly for like a month or something like that. But then I remember like 3 days into my grounding, my little brother got to go outside and play. Either just in the living room. I remember my parents just telling me or me asking like, can I go outside? And they were like, yeah, go ahead. And like I wasn't grounded anymore at all after like 3 days. Like after they got over the, okay, we need to punish her. I guess they realized like I knew I fucked up. Like it wasn't something I was going to do again. It wasn't something that I needed to learn a lesson. Like I already learned my damn lesson. So I guess they just like let up on it. Holly was like scared to come over to the house for a long time, so that was easy to avoid because she was afraid that they were going to get on to her, because my parents were more like the disciplinarians for her too, so she was afraid to come over. And then the first time she did come back, she like apologized to my parents, and they hugged her, and they were like, we were scared for you too, you know, like we're not mad at you, we were terrified, we don't want anything to happen to you girls. And so they were really nice to her again and everything. I think they finally believed that it was my idea. Like other people told them Haley was the one who thought it up. So yeah, so sorry Dad, sorry Jordan, sorry everybody that I did that to you guys. But yeah, I was like officially missing for like 4 hours or some shit. And oh look, I'm getting like splotchy, just like the stress of it. Oh God, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. But yeah, that's my story for today. So if you like this, please hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more videos, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.